And Alstom and the knock-on ramifications of it are actually dominating as well. The French newspapers, Flo's been looking through them for us as ever. The French President François Hollande then instructing ministers to find a way to save this historic train factory.
That's right. Let's take a look at the front page of 20 Minutes. It's all about the puns today. Hollande jumps on board. That's what their front page is. Now, Hollande says the government is mobilized to ensure that this plant located in the eastern city of Belfort will remain operational. Now, the plant is historic for several reasons, and papers are focusing on that today. Now, it reportedly is where France produced its very first steam train back in 1880, so quite a very historic thing there. But it's also where France's first high-speed TGV train was made, and it's currently where locomotives are made, so the driving force of trains, and that's, in a way, why it's such a symbolic plant.
And it also comes at a very politically charged moment, of course, here in France. We're gearing up still for those big presidential elections next spring, aren't we?
That's right. Let's take a look at Les Echos, the business paper that says that Hollande, his promise to keep the plant open is a very political one. It seems like Hollande is trying to make a point by saving Belfort. The problem is, though, that throughout his presidency, Hollande has made a lot of promises, hasn't he? And if we take a look at the front page of L'Humanité, the communist paper, they wonder, will this Alstom promise, is this for once a promise that François Hollande will keep? What's interesting is it's become a hot button issue for Hollande, but for the political class in general, because of course the primaries are coming up from for the right and for the left next year. And so this Alstom issue is becoming quite a hot button issue.
Now, you found as well that some papers wondering just why the political class is only just waking up to the crisis. L'Opinion says that the government's been aware of difficulties at the plant for months.
That's right. L'Opinion says that this is no surprise for the government. It's just using this opportunity to improve its terrible image. And on top of that, you know, we're talking about 400 jobs here, jobs that Alstom has promised to replace. So L'Opinion says that Hollande and the government's response seems a little disproportionate. And you can see the headline here, they're talking about state hypocrisy. And this cartoon is a really good one. What you can see here is the economy minister, Michel Sapin, as a train switch operator, asleep on the job here, it must be said. And so you can see the switch, instead of being pointed towards a real industrial strategy, is pointed towards a short-term vision, perhaps because of that presidential election.
Very clever, nice one. Meanwhile, Alstom actually drawing some criticism as well in the papers for kind of forcing the government's hand here.
That's right. If we go back to Les Echos, they wonder what fly bit Alstom's managers. It seems like they're not following that golden rule of business that you announce job cuts after an election, not before an election, especially when the government owns 20% of the company. But Les Echos says this actually might be a genius business strategy for Alstom, because for years now, unions and local officials have been sounding the alarm with no result. So it seems like this pre-election bombshell has been more efficient at actually getting the ball rolling.
Move on to a different story now. The government here in France set to announce its plan to dismantle a so-called jungle migrant camp in Calais in the north of France.
That's right. Le Figaro got a sneak peek at Interior Minister Bernard Cazeneuve's plan to relocate these migrants. Now, before the camp is dismantled, some 12,000 accommodation places will be created across the country by the end of the year. You can see that teeny little map there of France showing where these 12,000 spots will be. Well, they'll be in all regions. All regions are concerned, except for two regions, the Île-de-France, that's where Paris is located, and Corsica. Corsica, of course, there have been a lot of tensions about migrants, etc. there. But what's interesting is Le Figaro reports that what it's calling this forced integration, this forced relocation of migrants, is actually a very divisive issue across the country, and several small villages are torn between whether to be show solidarity, or to reject these new migrants. Now, sticking with the migrant issue, there's a very interesting report in La Croix, the Catholic paper today, about migrant children, and not only here in France, but across Europe, whether it's in Greece or in Germany or even in Lebanon. You can see La Croix is reporting that these migrant children need an education. They need to go to school, and of course it's back to school time now across the world. And so it's reporting on just how these countries are dealing with it. For instance, in Greece, migrant children will go to Greek public schools, but only after Greek children have gone to school. And so it's the paper is reporting that educating these migrant children is a real challenge for local authorities.
last piece from Flo, a lot of papers focusing on a book which is coming out this week. Now, it's calling for tolerance among religions, isn't it?
That's right. Now, the book is called The Rabbi, the Imam, and the Bishop. And it sounds like the beginning of a bad joke, but it's a book that's coming out tomorrow. You can see the three here. It's Michel Serfati, a rabbi, Michel Dubos, the bishop, and Khalil Meroun, the imam. And they all work in the banlieue, the projects. And they talk about the need for a great dialogue between Jews, Muslims, and Catholics. Now, Le Parisien applauds these three men for writing this book. They're showing the example, really calling for unity, but a unity that doesn't erase difference, a unity that respects people's difference. And if we take a look, they have an interview today with the three men. It's very interesting. And that little cartoon I find quite charming as well. If we take a look at it, you can see them talking to each other. And one says, "We have to learn to live together." And the others are saying, "Well, we better hurry up because with the state of emergency, congregations of 3 people are pretty soon going to be banned."
Well, let's hope not. All right, thank you very much, Flo. Flo with the papers here on France 24. Interesting book by the looks of it as well.